Sunday. Come on. There we go. Welcome, everyone, to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing Live Show number 142. And with me is the ever popular, totally happy Mr. Edward St. Ange.
Hello, Mr. Gray. How are you today? I could hear you in the background talking.
Yes, yeah. There was an audio feedback on the other one that I'm co-casting on, but all good. Just turning everything else on. Hey, thank you so much. I know that we have a limited amount of time together today, and I'm sure that Mr. Robert Cole will be joining us shortly, as did Mr. Tim say he was going to join us today. And Holly has finished her coding class, and she was very proud of showing the certificate on Facebook, which was no small feat considering it was 240 hours or something of training. That was just crazy.
That's a lot.
That is a very large.
That's a lot of hours of training.
That is a lot of hours of training.
For any topic.
Especially when it comes to doing coding. I mean,
yeah.
Stuart is our resident coder. I have to say that he is the one that pretty much did the basic stuff from the very beginning. Okay, sorry. I'm turning everything else on at the particular moment. Of course, nothing's turning on.
Well, since no one's here, I think we should just make up stories about everyone.
Ooh, okay. So Robert was a forgotten child on the side of the road, and he was picked up by strangers, and he turned into Dr. Evil.
Yes, back in the 1930s, it was popular to leave your children on the side of the road. Even though Robert was 18 years old at the time, it still set him on a pretty bad path for his life.
I thought he was already 30 by that point. I thought he was already 30 years old by that
point. And that's how he got into the first oldest profession before getting into the second oldest profession, which is the hotel industry.
That deserves it, right? Because we were picking on you last week. Because it was just Robert and Lauren's show last week, and so it was kind of fun to go and pick on you and Stuart and everybody else. So it was kind of fun for that. He did set a really good list, though. But I want to talk about Marriott's reward program a little bit because they did with great favor. Did you listen to the guy that was talking on that video?
No. Let me tell you why. Because I really don't care. I'm just going to be honest. I really don't care. It's my understanding that nothing new is coming of this. It was just a really tough project. Is that a correct assessment, or did I possibly rob myself of some education?
No. It was. Hey, Mr. Robert.
Hello.
Robert
Ed
Cole.
robbed himself of education. Oh dear.
I did. Actually, Lauren just said I didn't. He asked me if I had, seen the video and read up on the new Marriott loyalty program, and I said, nah, I skipped it because I'm pretty sure there was going to be nothing new there. Just, a hard project completed.
Yeah, well, and it's not even going to be done until, they're tying it into their whole reservation system integration, so the new name and all that stuff. So,
by the way, Robert, you did miss, since you weren't here on time, we did tell your backstory of your life. So you may want to go back and view it.
It's in the next Avengers Avengers story. So
Infinity War Part 2. Yeah, we did mention that back in the 30s when you were left on the side of the road as a small child at the age of 18. That
you got into the
1830s.
You got into the oldest profession, which actually led you into the second oldest profession, which was the hotel industry.
Yes. Actually, I've used the oldest profession and second oldest profession before, because that is actually fairly accurate for
right.
No. To go back to the membership thing, though, the guy that did the video, I told Robert this already. What a cocky son of a bitch. I mean, he was talking about, we're opening up hotels all over the place every 14 hours. If you want to visit a hotel, we have a new one for you. You're never going to see all of our hotels. We're everywhere doing everything. And this membership program allows you to go over and access everything all the time around the world. We're the biggest. We're the best. And I'm like, man, oh, man, you guys, this guy, to me, in my mind, they picked the absolute worst person to talk about this stuff. And then the boil down was they kind of pandered to the Ritz-Carlton people. They diluted the low-level people, and they totally screwed the hyper-loyal people that were with SPG. because their point system was totally diluted, and their reward program is almost worthless to those who really try to push themselves on a regular basis for high-end travel. So,
but here's
that's why they acquired Starwood.
Right? Are you at all surprised by any of that?
No. It's just sad that they actually went that way.
Incredibly predictable, and also why I skipped it.
Well, and that is, I mean, Starwood points were triple the value of Marriott Rewards points. And you look at it and go, well, yeah, is Marriott going to go triple the value of all of that inventory? Again, they had a lot more hotel, and you just go, no, not going to happen. So, I don't know. I think they did a fairly good job at it. I mean, that's a really hard task. So,
right, and that's what I said. Incredibly hard project to do, so kudos for that. But I wasn't expecting anything innovative because it's an incredibly hard project to do. What they just did probably took every ounce of their capabilities to, get taken care of. So I really wasn't expecting, groundbreaking reward schemes.
Right. No, their whole thing is how do you integrate this together without disenfranchising large swaths of people where everybody goes, we hate it. Everybody goes, it's not the greatest, but now it's big, right?
Like good governing, everyone should be a little bit disappointed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And guess what? If everybody was thrilled because this is now the richest program in the hotel industry, their shareholders would have, Wall Street would have reacted.
Right.
Yeah, you've tripled the cost of your, pal. So, lots of constituencies to balance out there.
So Lauren and I were mentioning that you did an incredibly good job putting this list together. And Lauren, I'm guessing you missed the part that today is National Tell a Story Day, but also National Day of Silence.
Those are the people not telling the story.
And most important, it's National Hairball Awareness Day, which, Robert, did you bring?
I'm so sorry.
Oh, the gifts we can capture.
Oh, we're live. Oh, damn.
Damn it.
Yeah. So you did have quite a list. You were
talking about Marriott, but I thought the top story is Marriott's launching a home rental program.
But they already had one under a different division. I'm fairly certain Marriott already had
the vacation rental. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they already had this. Maybe it's now under the new umbrella of, Marriott because MVCI was spun off. But, I mean, there was a home program inside. Maybe my awareness of the home program was their beta, and now it's officially being rolled out. But it sounded like this is beta, that they're launching this in the European market.
I thought this was more of I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if these are more, pure rental properties or these are also more residential type things,
right.
or if it's a mix. They're a little fuzzy on that. So that was going to be one of my.
You will be talking about this with every brand who doesn't currently do it in the coming year and a half. Bottom line, Choice already does it, so they've already got this program, and I think someone else does too. Besides
they've Hyatt invested in One Fine Stay. Accor has 2 or 3 in it. Somebody else who partnered with Oasis. So yeah,
there's never been a better time to be a homeowner. That doesn't want to live in their home. Now it's
Hyatt did the thing with Oasis. That's right.
Yeah. So no, I think you're going to see everyone get into it because Marriott's making the play. You're either everything or you're specialized. Well, they're being everything, and this is a continuance of that play.
Yeah. Well, and originally the Marriott Vacation Club, I mean, the kind of timeshare approach was really sell these fractional ownership units as a portion of the whole resort development. And hey, we just found a financing source for the whole project, right? So they could really defray their development costs. But this is a little bit, different. These are just, homes. We're going to go curate these, pull them together, and they put them kind of into the Tribute Home Collection, which is kind of like, that's not the best. TributePortfolioHomes.com, following the trends set by Lauren Gray at HospitalityDigitalMarketing.com for, hey, can we get the longest URL?
Longest URL. Can we please say hi to Alan today? Good morning.
Hey,
Hello, Ed. Hello, Robert. Hello, Lauren.
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing Show with people on it.com.
I am thrilled to be on the show with the longest URL ever.
I'm glad you could find it.
That's right. There's still people at 90 minutes just trying to get in and just hitting final key after mistyping it a couple times.
Right, exactly. Stuart's on a new computer, actually. He just slacked me. He's on a new computer and didn't have it saved in his bookmark, so he's still typing in the URL to get into the show. So,
Can we have our own Slack, Lauren? Can we have our own little Slack account? HospitalityDigitalMarketing.slack.com.
Slack.com. Yes, of course. Actually, I think I have one already.
Slack, they actually have a character limitation on the URL. That's not possible.
Thank you so much.
So
DM wasn't available, huh?
Valen, I don't know if you saw Robert's amazing list of topics for today.
She did. She opened it 4 minutes before the thing started because everything I sent out has tracking of open tracking, so I can. I guess I shouldn't tell people.
You are telling a story and not. Yeah, so I have it. I heard you guys talking about the home rental program.
So are you guys at all setting your sights on anything for that side of the industry?
For vacation rental?
Yeah. Upselling?
Not at this point. No. It's not that there isn't anything there. Obviously there is, but it's the product that we have, it tends to be for boxes, right? So to be able to create a product that can be easily implemented for supplier by supplier where maybe you have 2 rooms and one of them is better than the other. Then you've got tens of thousands of that.
Yeah.
Our product's not built for that. Doesn't mean it can't be. It's just not what we're focused. It's not the market we're focused on. You can see the obvious opportunity there. But I also think Airbnb. Let's just talk about them as the market leader. I would imagine that they would probably take on something like that and do it themselves rather than bring in somebody. I mean. They don't want to clutter up their user experience by bringing in.
There is a large amount of this industry, though, that's professionally managed. That does have the same passion about driving direct that the hotel space has.
Right.
We work with quite a few companies that have amassed a pretty substantial inventory.
With like property management companies?
That are, considerable in size. And, it's interesting. It is a tough space from a technology stack to really get your arms around because, yes, in a lot of cases outside of Florida, because Orlando, they pre-build vacation rental properties and neighborhoods and create consistency in product. But outside of that, it gets challenging to build to that.
Yeah, lots of small unit sales. I mean, not boots on the ground sales, but a product that has to be able to manage that. And
there's no small units, only small marketers. Sorry, it just felt like a cool opportunity.
You've been waiting. You've been waiting.
And see, Tim was waiting for a quote like that to join the
years.
Speaking of small marketers,
I don't know what I walked in late on.
You just missed a really bad joke delivered by yours truly. So
yes, who else? Who else in this crowd would deliver a really bad joke?
Got it. My apologies. I was on the phone with a client who was basically asking how they could give me more money. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this call.
Yeah. Happy to discuss that with you.
Yeah, you just keep talking. You just keep talking.
Yep. I had a call like that yesterday. Those are great calls.
Do you think that customer's watching you now, Tim?
Oh, he froze.
Dramatic pause. You've now,
and that's quite a picture. That's quite a picture.
Yeah, maybe he heard my question and had a little freak out and went to call the customer back.
Yep.
Yep.
That's now he's going to be here twice. Look at
he's going to be here twice, I think. Yeah, hold on.
Tim Peter.
So
a double dose of blue plaid.
There he is.
One thing on the vacation rental side, there are actually 3 pools of inventory, right? Because you have one, as Ed said, the spec units, right? That they want people to come down and take tours, things like that. That's a huge area, a huge opportunity, because the upside is you can sell someone, but something for possibly tens of thousands of dollars. The second one are all these sort of remaindered weeks, right? Because they've sold a bunch of stuff, but everything isn't sold out. They've got little fractional weeks to go fill in, and the property's up and running, everything's going. But how can they? Because the developers still own those and want to monetize them. And then the last one is really more the realm of the exchanges like the RCIs and those who want to trade, exchange, sell, all that stuff, and those margins are insane. I mean, it's
well,
crazy.
I mean, listen, the business model that's very popular here in Florida is take a piece of property that is in a somewhat accessible location and is very low cost, build basically an apartment building on it, and then sell those individual apartments at a higher cost per square foot than you could ever justify in any other use by saying that you will achieve an ADR on the rental side of X.
Right.
Sell all the units and then sell the remaining operating business to someone else to manage.
Right.
And it makes an incredible amount of money for the developer.
Oh, it's insane. Well, and even
you guys
for
remember a gentleman named Yin? He did quite a bit of that here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and the other trick to it is throw massive events at the properties as part of like a regular process to drive demand. And then as soon as you've sold everything, you basically stop funding the events and leave it up to the association to be able to decide if they want to do that, which once they see what those events actually cost, they don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Oh, yeah. Well, actually, and I have to check. Well, he's not really my attorney. He's more of a businessman. He does a little tiny fractional part of but Tim Peter, for the statute of limitations on talking about Sendent, I'm not sure. Can I talk about it? I think so. Okay. Oh.
Here I thought he was going to pull up one of his cats and be like, he's actually my attorney.
No, everyone needs a Jersey fixer. I mean, that's basically.
But didn't you know Tim is part of the Port Authority? He would like you to refer to him as Commissioner.
Commissioner, right? Commissioner Peter.
Don't
anyway,
ever pull over one of
by the way, I wish that were true, because that's the gift that keeps on giving.
Right. Every time you cross the GWB or go through the Lincoln Tunnel, that wets Tim's beak just a tad. Anyway, back in the old Sendent days, I almost headed distribution for all of their timeshare stuff, basically pulling it together. And at the time they had Fairfield Resorts, the largest timeshare developer, as Ed said, quite the profitable entity building these things up. And they owned RCI, right, the largest exchange group, and that organization had 94% margins, which was just
right. Loan
insane.
sharks
I've never
want
seen
those kinds of margins.
Exactly. And on top of that, the crazy aspect was, and again, this was 2004, 2005-ish. They had what, 500,000 weeks of inventory available. Right now, that's a lot of inventory. So with that, though, half of it was crap. So 250,000 weeks were, yeah, I was in it. Whatever price you put it at, it doesn't matter. You can't give it away for free, sort of thing. So those are kind of lost structurally. That's fine. But the top two quartiles, there was, you know, that second quartile where you really looked at and went, you know, you get the price low enough, you've got 125,000 weeks you can move. And then the really good stuff, that top quartile was like Maui beachfront Christmas week.
Yeah, super
stuff.
pretty.
I mean, high demand, ski in, ski out stuff at whatever it may be.
Which is
and
amazing
they just couldn't.
for Christmas on Maui.
Oh,
oceanfront ski
yeah.
and ski out is incredibly hard to find. So people would pay
that's on the
quite a premium.
It's on the big Dad. That's the big island. That's a big island, right? So you can do the kiloways.
It's that popular ash skiing.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I had a business case I had to get approved by corporate one time in my Ascendant days, and you had to go through corporate finance and everything. And the guy in corporate finance was new to the company, and he told me my numbers were wrong, 1 to the decimal place. You know, I'd gone over one too far, and I was like, "No, that's how much we make." And he went, "What?" Man, I love your business.
$2.5 billion of free cash flow every year.
Yeah, he assumed
Put
literally
in a
assumed
nice
it was
hamper.
1 decimal place to the left. And I was like, no, that's real numbers.
And
Wow.
and if you had the right office location, there was a large hamper of that just by the door, and you took what you needed. So, but
Tim's frozen again. You've said something that upset him.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
We have a subtle signal that every time I
today.
cross a line, he freezes
Tim,
his image.
Blink if you're not a lamp.
We're gonna have some great screenshots of him here.
I can
but that's
hack his LinkedIn profile and change his profile.
Well, so back to the super cash riches that come off of these models. Where the real money's at is in also providing the financing for these sales and then packaging them and selling them on the street and keeping the spread. Because that is insane. You hold on to the note for 2 years, you package them up into large swaths. And from a couple of people I know who live in that world, like you keep about 7-8% of the percent of interest. So you're selling it. The people buying it are going to make 3-4% on servicing the remainder of the note, but you get to keep the other 7 to 10% that you charged on the principal. So it's I mean, it's a ton of cash. It's just a lot of cash.
No, same in way back for Journey's End when they were developing, limited service hotels. It was unbelievable. Yeah, you'd buy a $500,000 piece of land, because you're competing with Burger King and McDonald's. McDonald's land banks a lot of locations and things like that. They're a big real estate business in addition to the food side of it, if you quote food side.
Yeah.
You'd have $2.5 million in improvements. So you've got this thing, $3 million, whatever, 80 rooms, operating with 17, full-time equivalent staff, and, clean, new, great little property, interior corridor, not crappy development, but you put, I don't know, 6 of those together for a little $30 million package, and you bring in limited partners to buy that. Do the math. You go, oh wait, yeah, each hotel was valued at $5 million. What do you know? That's pretty good. $2 million right at 60% ROI right off the bat is always good, and then you can go and charge 12-13%, whatever you want, in your general kind of fee, fee levels for nice residuals off of that. And we were able to guarantee those limited partners 18% return on investment for 2 years. Again, once you start layering in the notes and doing that sort of thing, if you can do that yourself, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
just
is.
the cash is amazing. So numbers are a little trickier now, but still, it's there's plenty of room to develop all sorts of new properties. And I really think the big thing now, I mean, Valen, before you came on, they were talking about all the new brands and things like that. About Lauren talking about the video of why to be part of the Marriott program, because they're developing all these new brands and all this new stuff. It's like, you guys have a massive portfolio of legacy product out here that you've really, that is the elephant in the room. Yeah, Moxies are great, but what about
but don't worry
stuff?
about those, because in order for those to continue growing at the pace that they are, you have to fundamentally fix things that are out of date about them. So don't do that. Let's just add new.
And that's
new
easy.
is much easier than fixing fundamentals.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Look at as Radisson Hotel Group changes itself and its corporate structure and its direction, they still have the Radisson brand to deal with. And here in the States, that's not a clear value proposition or brand message from Radisson, because properties are all over the place.
Now. Yeah,
right.
And that is now the corporate brand.
Well, I mean, overseas, they have hundreds of Radisson Blues in EMEA, which are well-regarded properties. And they're, of course, mostly managed by Residor, right, which is a master licensee. So, but the Radisson brand itself, there's hardly any Radisson branded properties in EMEA. They're mostly here.
Right.
But they're doing the same. They've introduced Radisson Red. And so this, bright, shiny object syndrome and oh yeah, by the way, there's these other older properties back here in the corner. Pay no attention to them.
Yeah. Don't look at the ones with the sleep number beds in them. Don't. Just go over here.
Tim, welcome back.
Tim, welcome back. So Robert, when I saw your list,
anybody who says we don't need net neutrality, by the way, just watch me on this show some days.
Hey, it's T-shirt day, Stuart. I don't feel bad. I'm wearing a T-shirt. You're wearing a T-shirt.
Does yours have a Millennium Falcon on it, though?
No, it doesn't have a Millennium Falcon on it.
He got his for standing at the finish line of a 5K.
By the way,
Lauren, stand up and show Stuart your back tattoo. Come on, show him your little Millennium Falcon tramp stamp, Lauren.
No tramp stamp today. No, that's not the Millennium Falcon we're talking about.
I'm just concerned why Robert knows about it.
That is exactly the right.
Lauren and I are close.
We're close, all right?
Very close.
We bonded.
That's right.
Look at Stuart with the Fuel Travel branded Tervis tumbler.
What?
Man.
Oh, look at this.
Wow.
Look at this.
Yeah. That was not intentional. It's been in multiple episodes. You've just noticed it for the first time.
Oh, he's still
Hey!
More Hospitality Digital Marketing Cup holds pens very, very well.
It's what I actually just pulled. It's what I just pulled out of the cup. Picking it up to pretend I drink from it.
And the URL wraps around the entire cup twice.
Exactly.
It's actually script inside the cup, and it spirals all the way down.
That's right. That's right. The URL spirals inside. Yes. Okay.
So Robert, I loved that you picked Hilton will let you control the TV lights temp in your room from your smartphone.
Because
yes. He's about to say because he was right. That's what he said.
Because people want to bring their own device. They don't want to be spied on by the devices you put in their room. So rather than buying Alexas and throwing Alexas in your room, why not just let people use their device on their platform that they're used to?
Which is already spying on them.
Right. That's exactly
right. But see,
the
there's a huge difference because they've accepted it themselves versus you're not giving them a choice by having it in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
And limiting them
see the harm in having Alexa. That's still on the other side of that fence.
Yeah?
Oh.
Oh, because you feel like Amazon's going to have your best interest in mind.
No, no, probably not. But it's convenience.
Right.
It's about frictionless,
Wow, we've upset the internet gods for real.
We have really upset them because Tim and Stuart bumped out. Yeah.
Wow.
There he is.
I'm beginning to think, by the way, that this isn't on my end, that this is webinar jam.
This is
connection.
It's called jam for reason.
You're getting the jam. We're getting the webinar. You're getting the jams.
That's funny.
Exactly.
But I will say this, right? If people said their own device was all they wanted to do all those convenient things, then why is Alexa selling like hotcakes for the home? Right? Because it's
people
convenient.
are choosing that to be their device at their home.
Right.
But they can't take that to the hotel, so put it there. If I'm used to using
Amazon
Alexa in my house, then I want to use it at the hotel. I don't see the problem.
Maybe Amazon should make a phone then.
Yeah, but obviously for the hotels, if they put it in their app on your device, they don't have to invest in the hardware.
Right.
So from a hotel standpoint,
or the liability.
That's exactly right? Because if Alexa actually turns out to be listening, oh my God, that would never happen.
Did you just say if?
Then you've also got privacy liability on you as well. So I think putting it on my device, I'm not sure I would use it. It's also only going to be in 1,500 rooms by the end of the year. So it's not
right.
It's not,
well, and that's
really
what we were talking about. Yeah, that whole retrofitting thing, right? Of the existing properties that are there to those owners and going, hey guys, this isn't free, but the guests love it. So they're going to want to do it, and
so it's going to be in a single tower of Hawaiian Village.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. That's about it.
It's got to be in a high-end property, right? Because they're the ones who can foot the bill, and that means it's a big property. So we're talking maybe 3 hotels, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, New York Midtown's bigger than 1,500 rooms. Hawaiian Village is bigger than 1,500 rooms. You know, like,
any place in Vegas is bigger than 1,500 rooms.
Right.
Yeah. So the story, I mean, 15. You read it and you go, ooh, 1,500 rooms.
And Valen, you're exaggerating. It was 1,000 rooms by the end of the year. I think.
I thought I read 1,500.
I think it was 500 piloted and then adding another 1,000.
Adding another 1,000.
It's that math thing.
To be honest.
5 plus 2.
I never got that. I never really got that figured out.
Hilton's doing what marketers do, right? They're taking something that's hyped right now that they know they're going to get stories written about. They're doing it by dipping their toe in it, but we're talking about them, right? But
it's also laying the groundwork for some real neat hyper-personalization. Like, if Hilton does right by what this architecture provides for them, how great would it be that when you show up to your room, it's already got your channels preset as your favorite channels. It has your temperature set at your favorite temperature, your lighting mood set at your favorite lighting mood.
That can happen today, A lot of hotels have the capability. They just don't do it. The data can be in the PMS. The PMS already talks to the thermostat.
It's hard.
This side of my mouth, by the way. It's like, we know they're not going to do that.
Doing the pre-arrival stuff, even.
I think the really big aspect, though, is if you're bringing your own device and it can work with people who like Google Home, right? And they're on an Android, and Google Assistant knows everything about them and is with them all the time. That's great. Or Apple and Siri, they've got, all God knows with Microsoft and Cortana, maybe. Who knows? So you've got all these different platforms that they're used to that have all of their stuff, right? Because maybe it is, as strange as it may sound, Microsoft and Cortana, because it's integrated with their business stuff and it's all in OneDrive, and who knows? Their whole life is all their picture, music is in Groove.
Well, Robert,
so
you're getting at a fundamental point there. You're getting at a fundamental point there that it's not about bringing your own device. It's about bringing your own connections. It's about bringing your own stuff. It's about bringing your own content, bringing your own data, etc. Right. I mean, that's really what customers ultimately want, and I don't want to have to re-log into Netflix every hotel I go to, and I don't want to have to log into Prime every hotel I go to, and I don't want to have to re-log into Apple iTunes in every hotel I go to.
Right.
Let me just,
and I got access to
screen or tap button and change the light, whatever, be done with it.
Yeah, and I've got access to Prime through my Android sort of thing, right? So you can you can do all that. So the
other side of the device story this week was so you didn't put it on there. I don't know, maybe you put it on as the retro, but the hack, the key card hack for Ving cards.
Oh yeah, why wasn't it on your retro? That's a pretty big one. That's like
It is. It came out Wednesday.
Oh,
so
wait.
Oh,
Hold
I
on. To
missed
be
it.
fair,
I missed it.
Robert may be consulting for a door lock company, so maybe that's why I wasn't in the room. He's like, "What are you talking about? Door locks are so secure."
I
so it was a
don't
white
see
hat.
everything. So
It was a white hat hacking organization that put out a press release, basically, that they had been able to hack into Vingard run door locks, but the version was older. But they put out a press release, and it got picked up. Mainstream media, your local television station, all the trade pubs all picked it up.
Wired got it. Yep, I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, the version I heard of it, the initial version before I went and looked at it, was 90% of all door locks hackable by a simple hack. News at 10, and I'm like, that's
I know. It was
like, there's no way.
It was catnip. I mean, it was absolute catnip of a story for media, right? Because they could absolutely sensationalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the one in the maintenance port? You put it in the maintenance port of the door lock? Is that the? I don't know what was the actual hack. Oh no, but this one, what the
actual hack was.
Oh, they didn't.
Yeah,
okay,
this is a new one, Robert. Yeah, this is a new one. It's not the one from a year or so ago.
Yeah, they say they're a white hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't.
They didn't actually want to cause the chaos. They just kind of wanted to throw out.
But Assa Abloy, of course, because it was a Vingard lock, and so Assa Abloy, they didn't put out a statement because I went looking for it, but they replied, like if a reporter called them up, they gave a statement, and their statement was something along the lines of, well, so this company had said they had been trying to find a hackable door lock system, and they finally found one. So Assa Abloy said, well, it took them long enough. And what they hacked was an out-of-date version that there's been a patch on the market for 2 months. And basically Assa Abloy said to, hotels, hey, get your act together, right?
So it's been on the market for 2 months. So I'm going to say there's probably about 105 rooms that have upgraded to that. I'm going to say inside of the next 26 years, they'll breach a 50% upgrade.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of what Assa Abloy said was, hey, hotels, here it is. It's been out there. You need to deal with it.
And it can be yours for a low price of $6,000.
Yeah. You know what? I think they push their updates automatically. You have a specific server on property, and I think they stay. I mean, for obvious reasons that we're talking about, I think they have to stay up to date, to be fair. We've done the integration with Assa Abloy. I wasn't working on the project, but I'm pretty sure it's updated.
Yeah, it really depends because some of these are standalone units and there's no connectivity, right? I mean, they're just sitting there in the door and they've got a sequence. They got a little chip with a sequence, and that's it, right?
I don't know. I think they're all communicating back now. They have.
Are they?
Yeah.
They have multiple products, right? Because they bought.
Sure. Yeah, but for the smart, keyless entry stuff where we integrated the mobile app, they're all communicating with a centralized server.
Yeah. So who knows? This guy might have just hacked the card itself, but it was in the story was picked up far and wide. The BBC covered it. I mean,
it was sensational.
It just went everywhere. Yeah. It went absolutely everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it was several years ago though. They had some guys using the maintenance port.
Yeah, and the more. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, all I was going to say was, I mean, we're running into this situation in the, with the Facebook stuff and all of this, that right now security hacks are hot as a topic, right? The media thinks they're cool and all that other kind of stuff.
Well, Facebook wasn't a hack. That's what drives me.
No, I understand that, but most people don't get that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, this is, the problem is, Ed, when you're explaining, you're losing. Right. And the reality is what people know is my data is being used in a way I don't want it to. I'm not safe. I'm not secure. What's the old line about the media? If it bleeds, it leads. Right. Yep. And if you've got this opportunity to scare the bejesus out of old people or people who don't understand technology, that's gonna pop. That's gonna go right to the top of the news media and the like. And that's something that's the world in which we've always lived. Today, the world we live in is the one that scares people is not, I'm going to get knifed in an alleyway, but I'm going to, have somebody hack into my hotel room and rummage through my
with something
under things.
Well, and then conversely, Robert did put on the list that story about Emar brands, right? Going no more check-in, right? So of course, the only way you do that is you push the entire process onto the mobile device. So,
right. Hallelujah. I mean, hallelujah. Right. I do not want to have to wait in another check-in line. There is no reason for that to exist today at any hotel. Period.
So I'm going to be the cynic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be the cynic, though. Las Vegas. I mean, right? We had a guy who checked into his hotel room and nobody knew about him for a few days. And the next thing you know, right? A tragic event. Where's the line? You know, if we have a duty of care, don't we have a duty of care to ensure that we know who's in the hotel and we know, whether or not these folks look sketchy?
Well, that's just surveilling the property. Well, so you have constant 24/7 surveillance, including in room, and you're fine, Tim.
Well, Echo's in the room,
and that ties to Stuart's point of having Alexa in the room. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think the security is one angle, but I also think there's categories of traveler, and if I'm a business traveler, I don't want to mess with people, right? I'm there for a purpose. I want to get into my bed and sleep, and then go to the conference or whatever. But if I'm a leisure traveler and I'm a family and I'm going to this all-inclusive resort or to a resort with a ton of amenities, I want to sit there and talk to someone at the front desk and learn about the property and have them tell me stuff. And we're the hospitality industry. I think dehumanizing.
But here's the difference. Do you want to stand in line for potentially 20, 30 minutes, depending on where you are and what time you arrive, with your children who have lost patience for standing
obviously
in line?
The worst part of the experience, right? It can be made way more efficient, right?
So
with mobile check-in and things like that. But to eliminate the front desk, this is a terrible idea.
But see, you just redefine how you staff the property.
Sure.
Delivering hospitality does not mean we have to stick to the worst aspects of the hotel experience.
No.
Right.
But that's not what they're saying. They were saying they want to streamline everything and automate everything and reduce cost, right? That was the angle of the story, which, I think what you're saying is different. It's reallocating those costs to something that's more beneficial and gives a better experience. So
because if you do that, you make more money and you will be more profitable.
Yeah, but I mean, look at how many.
It depends if you want to increase that expense or maintain that expense line to provide a superior guest experience, which I would argue you should over the long run to make more money. But there will be a lot of people who just say,
"If you are a hospitality company."
Correct.
That's true. If you are just a lodging, lodging shelter providing company,
you're a real estate company,
right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
So there you go. Hyatt CEO wants to woo the global middle class.
The glue.
Woo the global.
Why would you want to woo a declining market?
Right. I mean, that market is shrinking by the day.
Well, no. If you read it, what this actually is Hyatt CEO wants to sell more select service franchises in China.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. This was a PR person going, how do we get on the radar of Chinese real estate developers? Well, let's make sure we're only talking to them. So let's talk about a growing middle class. Okay. And then let's make sure we talk about how our product can do that.
Yeah, but it's what we said before. You've got this, Hyatt has this legacy product, right? You've got all these giant atrium regencies and stuff like that, which are very large, very expensive to heat, that sort of thing. And not nearly as cool as a Centric or, a Hyatt Place or a Hyatt House or all these other, these newer brands that are coming up. And Hyatt's challenge is going to be, what do you do with those, hundreds of thousands of rooms that are in these large convention boxes, right? They've got to figure out that business. But in the meantime, they're going to go for growth on all these new hot brands, right? Or they're going to lose out on that market, right?
How many of us believe that Hyatt will exist as a standalone brand in 5 years?
Ah, that's a good point.
Wow, I didn't see anybody jumping in going, oh, absolutely. This is more like Hyatt wants to woo investors to come buy us.
Yeah.
By going after the most shrinkiest growth market there is.
But that's where everything's getting built. That's where all the development is. It's hard to build luxury hotels. Do you really want to build, these big barns with lots of convention space and things?
Yeah, but if you don't build a complex property, you can't have a website that boils that down to a series of bullet items. I mean, you have to build a very complex property to fit that model. You need to have lots of services and very inspirational things to then market with hairdryer as the first bullet item on the website, and make sure that you don't provide more than 2 sentences in the description of anything.
Ed,
we love
Ed, that is not accurate. It's air conditioning because they do it alphabetically, and air conditioning normally falls first.
We love complexity in inventory presentation. We just love it.
Yeah. Did you know there?
I mean, that's lots of, the guest goes, oh my God, I'm not reading through all this. I'll book the standard room, and then we provide them an upsell offer and they take it because it's nice and simple.
That's fun.
I like how the #2 family hotel in the state of Florida does not have any mention of family friendliness on their website because their brand doesn't support it.
Their brand is family hostel. Is this part of the brand promise?
No, is this your favorite, Ed, that you reference?
The Hyatt? Yes. Marketed like every other Hyatt that there possibly is, but yet somehow it actually turns out the property was built to be incredibly family friendly.
Does Hyatt allow vanity sites or not? I know some franchises do.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Yeah. No, why would you? You don't need to. They list every feature in 5 words or less. Alphabetically.
Yeah.
But this goes back to something we've talked about before. I mean, this is where the soft brands came from. Because why is that property a Hyatt? It can be on the Hyatt system, but it needs to be, a soft brand. So it can be a distinct experience, a differentiated experience.
Hyatt's ability to sell group house would shatter the ability of most other brands. I mean, if you look at just the when they bought the Peabody on iDrive, the amount of group guests that you need to put in that room, in the rooms of that property, outstrips the total amount of group guest sales that some of the soft brands do, like across their entire portfolio.
Of course.
So Hyatt does that incredibly well. I pick on them on their leisure side, but that's also not been their focus. However, moving into this middle market, this middle class market, you're going to need to fill some of those with some leisure guests, and you may want to consider a slightly different approach to how the Hyatt website works.
Well, I mean, this is something we've talked about before here on the show, and this is Business School 101, right? Is often the thing that you're strong at is a weakness and from another perspective. I mean, it's this thing that what's Hyatt good at? They're really good at groups. Are they really good at leisure? No, they're really not. So if this is a leisure property in Central Florida, why is it a Hyatt? I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Right?
Right.
Yep.
It doesn't mean they shouldn't be flagged.
If you only have 1 or 2, I guess it's where all your loyalty members redeem when they're not traveling on group. I guess you do need some fulfillment properties in the collection.
Right. You can't have a Hawaii problem if you don't have any properties in Hawaii.
Right.
Well, no, but Hyatt and in their resort group, I mean, they certainly have some great resorts, but I always love the story of the Hyatt Maui, where they had to do a renovation. This was back several, I think it was mid-90s. And the place was just getting beaten up because it was running like 89% occupancy structurally year-round. And they just had to do some renovation. But they kept putting it off because they're like, no, we're displacing this demand. We can't even shut off floor by floor. It doesn't work. So revenue manager came up with a great idea. We're going to crank the rate, right? And we'll lower it down. There'll be attrition, and that way we'll do it. But it'll, we'll get the ROI out of it. And it didn't work.
What?
They kept raising the rate, and they kept getting it. People, because it was an aspirational property.
Some would say that did work then. Robert.
Or they need a
No,
new.
no. They
They
raised
didn't
the
accomplish
They got the right one. They got the
Yeah,
right one.
right, right.
That said, let's raise the rate until we can't raise it anymore, and then just couldn't find that ceiling.
They
That
couldn't
guy
find
should
that
have been
point.
fired for not having the rate higher previously.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn
He's a
straight.
bad revenue
That's
man.
right.
Right.
But the objective was to get the occupancy down, which they couldn't do with the higher rates. That was the interesting part.
It's amazing.
So
So
yeah.
evidently, bullet point marketing works. So I will. That I was wrong.
I'm going to contact all my clients immediately and tell them to take all that really well-crafted, handwritten copy off of their site.
But-
We're getting out of
Replace it
guest
with-
photos. We're getting into guest bullet points
No,
now.
but see, that's Hyatt's
They're not
problem.
via blockchain.
That's right. Distributed network of.
We'll talk about that later. That's another point. But the Hyatt is a relatively aspirational brand, and I think that's their whole strategy. Is you get in limit. The Centrics are doing really, really well. I mean, every single one I see, they are getting really strong ADRs. I mean, Park Hyatts are fine. You don't hear much about them anymore. I don't know if I think they're still developing them. I just think those projects are few and far between. But they certainly aren't. Grand Hyatts and Hyatt Regencies, not so many of those coming. But the Centrics are knocking it out of the park. The Hyatt
But are
Places
those
are knocking it out of the
Centrics?
park.
Are they invading cities like Moxie is for Marriott? Like, is it invasion level, Robert?
Not invasion level. Yeah, you're right. But they're getting really strong ADRs. Moxie's going for a relatively, low, reasonable ADR. The Centrics are getting, better prices than a lot of the main Hyatts, right? The mainstream Hyatts. So.
I have a question, by the way. How old do you have to be before you can get labeled a curmudgeon? Because as soon as you hit that age,
Robert, I believe this question is for you.
25. For me, it was 25. I don't know, but I developed early.
this week in hospitality digital marketing,
I actually
the
think
curmudgeonly Ed St. Olge.
Robert picked stories that have titles that I will pick on. Like, I think he's baiting me with some of these stories.
Clickbait.
Of course, I'm baiting you.
The inside story behind Marriott's Moxie-led invasion of Manhattan.
That's right.
Ed, it's not really that hard to bait you.
No, it's
That's true. That's true.
Have an
It
opinion.
is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just tossing it out. Yep.
I do have a willingness to share when I think about it.
The willing there. I'm stealing that. Thank you very much. The next time my CEO tells me, "Isn't it time for me to be quiet?" I'll say, "No, I have a willingness to share."
This is share. Willingness to share.
I share well with others. They just don't like to hear it.
If I could go off on a tangent for 1 second, one of my daughters, and I will. No, I know, but I'm going to keep it anonymous because I don't like to call out my kids in public. But it was funny when she was young, when she was little in school. You know how you have to kids bring home the thing from school when they get in trouble. The I forget what they called it, but the sheet where they had to write down why they'd gotten in some trouble.
Oh, and you have to sign it.
And you have to sign it and send it back. So, of course, she brought home this thing because, what did you do? I was talking in class, right, was the thing. And why did you do it? Why did you do it? Well, you're exactly right. It said, why did you do it? And her reply was, there's just so much to say. And it was so hard. It was so hard for my wife and I not to just be falling on the floor laughing. We were like, all right, I don't even know how to reply to that one. That's fantastic.
I don't have anything for that one. No.
This may be shocking to all of you, but I was actually kept off of honor roll every year in school because of conduct.
I'm not.
Really?
Yeah.
I know
It's just shocking our faces right now.
The only 6-year-old curmudgeon in history.
That's right. And boy, is my son the exact carbon copy of that. I was leaving for a trip last week, and he looked at me, and now my son's 4 years old, and he's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Going on a trip." He goes, "Where?" I'm like, "To the beach." And he looked at me and goes, You need to get out of the city, don't you?
What?
Where did that come from?
I think not far from the tree is where that didn't come
Yeah,
from.
exactly.
Now, my wife's kindergarten report card, which we found, we were digging through some stuff, said, "Edith is unsettled in class." It was like, that's pretty, pretty good. But,
all right, so what other headlines are going to unsettle Ed?
I like the legal experts share hotel industry's ongoing challenge. Did anyone read that one?
Nah.
I did. I'm going to test
it. Wasn't clickbaity enough.
Was it clickbaity enough?
Plus, I try to avoid listening to legal experts.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so go down and let's talk about the third point. All you guys.
The one I care about?
Yeah. No. The third point on that article. They make
it's the one I care about.
Which is what?
Sweepstakes and contests.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, a lot of people don't realize that if you do chance-based sweepstakes inside of the US, and that requires consideration, meaning if you're doing this targeted at guests, that's illegal in 50 states and Washington, D.C.
Is there a lot of that? I mean, do your customer sets?
Not my customers. But
yeah, I see it a lot. A lot of people try to do sweepstakes and things like that on Facebook. Yeah, they have no idea. Yeah, I mean there are ways to do it.
It's also against Facebook's terms.
Yeah,
correct.
Which is also mentioned
things against Facebook's terms. There are ways around it, right? There's certain states you have to completely avoid, but you have to give people another way to be able to enter to win.
Correct.
They need to be able to enter without consideration.
Right, and there needs to be some kind of, you need to get some kind of insurance and things like that. It's there are ways around it, but you can't just in some states. Yeah. But
there are better ways to accomplish these things.
But let's be honest, the hospitality industry doesn't really pay attention to PCI, doesn't really pay attention to ADIA compliance. They don't really pay attention to a lot of the rules and regulations they're supposed to be following. GDPR is another one that they're about to ignore.
We don't need no stinking rules.
Exactly. Yeah. So until someone goes after them, I mean, how many? I talked to a property group yesterday. There are 192 properties. And they said about a year ago, someone came up after them because they weren't ADA compliant. So they had spent a bunch of money getting, compliant. But had they not had a lawsuit brought against them, this is almost 200 properties. ADA compliance wasn't even a consideration.
Yeah.
So,
I don't even know. I mean, I guess on old properties, I get how that's possible, but building code kind of requires ADA compliance, at least in the physical location.
Yeah, and I think physical is different because you're going to have someone inspect that, right? Digitally, I mean,
no.
And here's the thing: someone will go out and get an ADA compliant website. I mean, we do all the time. We'll build and sign off, and we'll do the checks to make sure it's ADA compliant, and then the next thing you know, some low-level monkey is there hacking away at the WordPress backend, uploads an image, doesn't add an alt text, and you're not ADA compliant anymore, right? So it's about maintaining it as well. And
I'm sorry, what was the title of that person again? Back for what?
I am so
Perfect title, by the way. Just I never before. It's like, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Occasionally on our platform, our hotels will say, we'd like to put an ad basically on our platform offering, because we've got this contest going on, and we don't even want to go there. What we say is, well, if you put something on there that doesn't generate revenue and it pushes down the revenue generation offers below the fold, you're going to lose money, and that's enough for them to go, oh right, yeah, sorry, but we are so not. I mean, we've had customers ask us to do it, and we just won't.
Well, and so this is the other thing is, like, when a customer asks you to do anything, I mean, the first question should be is this right for the guest? Please. Can we just make sure that's everyone's first question? Is it right for the guest? Because most of the time it's not. And, can we find a place where this is right for the guest? And here's the thing, and why we're talking so much about GDPR is, first of all, a lot of the vendors that should be kind of leading the charge on this are hiding from it.
Oh, yeah.
Lauren knows.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I gave Lauren an education on what to do and what to say, and he went to his vendor and gave them a chance to do it. The vendor who should be leading the charge for them.
On the forefront, yep.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we're both lucky enough. We're lucky enough. We have lots of big customers in Europe, and so for us, we didn't have a choice, right? I think for companies where their customer base is U.S. only, they try to fool themselves that GDPR just doesn't apply to them because I'm not in the States. Right. I mean, I'm not there.
Right. We call that excuse the America.
Exactly.
I had a client come to me the other day. It came up. We're trying to educate our clients, and they're like, "But it's a European rule. They can't touch us over here." It was just that cavalier mentality. You know, I'm like, well, read it because they kind of have some jurisdiction. So,
and I'm even talking to salespeople, and they're like, "Yeah, well, that's nothing we have to worry about." And I'm like, "You do realize anything you send out on your own has to still be compliant if you're pitching business?" And they're like, "Well, I mean, it's only a couple hundred people." Even if it's one person, you can't send it to them.
Right. One drop poisons the well.
With the caveat that the one thing that I do tell people about GDPR that they miss a lot is that they're looking more for compliance than punishment, right? Realistically, if you're a legitimate company, a lot of the penalties are scary as hell. Those penalties are really designed for folks who are egregiously breaking the law. Sure. That doesn't mean that you should then be ignoring those regulations or anything along the lines. It means you should be working to come into compliance with them.
Well, the bigger problem you have is the scenario I've given multiple times on this show. You're not going to get sued by the European Union. However, your insurance company or your legal counsel at some point ask the question, hey, have you taken any step to ensure that you're following the guidance of GDPR? Here's what'll happen. That'll get forwarded to you as a marketer from your GM or from the outside counsel or from the insurance company saying, hey, are we covered on this? And the answer, if the answer is no, that is going to get forwarded back to the person who asked the question. And that person's going to come back and say, hey, FYI, here's the fees. Because they're not going to go and educate you. They're not going to go, well, there's a structure and blah, 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 blah. That person who's just trying to check through their list of, hey, I'm your legal counsel.
They're trying to limit your liability.
They're going to say to your GM, all right, so the outstanding liability on that, if you get caught, is 10 million euro minimum or 4% of your annual revenue, whichever's higher. And what do you think your GM's going to do? Your GM's going to reach back to you and say, you can't do this anymore. You're going to have to, take care of it. No, by the way, if that happens after GDPR compliance goes into place, everything you would try to do to get your existing database into compliance is against GDPR.
Yeah, but I think back to Tim's point, I think if you're making steps and showing good faith,
that's it.
Correct.
It's not hard.
You're probably okay.
But ignoring it is actually how you're going to screw yourself. Do not ignore it. It's actually not hard. And there is no such thing as full compliance because they still haven't finished
it's not defined.
Figuring it all out. So you really just need to show that you tried.
Right.
Well, actually, the funny thing about that cracks me up is if you look at Google's page about GDPR compliance for Google Analytics. Right now, what it says is essentially, I'm way paraphrasing, but it basically says, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Google is basically saying, we know that we got to do something with analytics to make it compliant. Boy, May 25th is coming up soon, and we're working on that. We'll let you know once we get closer to it. A month away.
A lot of big companies have been sending out updates to their terms and conditions and privacy policies in the last few weeks.
Right. And that goes to the other half of the problem right now. It's not so much getting into the compliance, it's making your staff and team aware of the fact the rule exists. Because the hardest part is that they're thinking it's somebody else's issue or somebody else's problem. And even if you get the compliance in, your team is supposed to check off on the ability to understand its engagement of data. And that's half of the whole equation.
Right. And the biggest thing is, by the way, all of us as consumers want this. Mm-hmm. Like if you actually look at what GDPR is trying to accomplish, it's kind of what it's what you want. It's not egregious. The problem is it's going to kill off crappy marketers. Because if you're a crappy marketer who is who isn't holding true to the tenor of your relationship with your audience. Like, this is targeted at you.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it goes back to what I said last week. The data, or the week before, the data is not our data as marketers. It's the consumer's data. If you start with that premise and you treat people the way, and their data the way you want your data to be treated, you're not going to have problems with GDPR because you're already doing the right things. But it's when you try to game the system, try to use someone's data against them to get them to do something against their will, that's when you're going to get into trouble. And you know, you're going to get screwed by
really
GDPR, and that's good.
By the way? What's really funny is, you know, I'm sure most of the folks on this show have read the book Permission Marketing by Seth Godin, right? What's really funny about this is that, you know, Seth gets a lot of credit for being a guru, and he sometimes gets a lot of ridicule because he's, you know, sort of repackaging ideas we've heard before and stuff like that. But that book goes back to 1999. So we're talking about a book from 19 years ago that is kind of what we should have been doing all along. The reason GDPR exists is because a lot of marketers, usually not folks who are watching this show or listening to the show, but a lot of marketers have been jerks, have been ignoring that reality and saying, how do we spam people? How do we abuse the trust we have with our customer? How do we keep, you know, taking this data and, you know, using it as we like, not to the benefit of our customers? And GDPR, those penalties are designed to be so stiff, specifically so they can punish the folks who are egregiously violating the trust of customers, right? And I mean, that's, to Ed's point, yeah, we should want that. That's a good thing. Make the spammers die.
Yep. Like in all the presentations we're doing, our first slide of going over GDPR is a giant asteroid labeled GDPR is coming down to Earth, and the dinosaurs are running because GDPR is going to kill off the dinosaurs
That's beautiful.
of marketing.
Do you all know Wheaton's law?
Will Wheaton?
Will Wheaton.
Wait a second, Ed. So your suggestion is what? Destroy the asteroid or embrace it as it comes down? I guess
I'm embracing
without
Will Wheaton is famous. You know, he's, you know, the mayor of the internet or something like that. People always refer to him as, you know, and he's this really nice guy in real life. He's got a nice conscience and stuff, and he's got a very simple thing that I think is good words to live by: don't be a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been my operating principle of business ever since I've been in business.
Wait, Ed? What?
Something Ed. Ed has always been one about establishing a goal that you probably won't ever reach, but try every day to attain it. That's really kind of a...
Listen,
See,
I got to be honest.
The impossible dream.
It's not being a dick calling out someone who's being sloppy. So,
No, I'm teasing you.
So
I tease because I love.
Yes, I have to share. I have to share an uncomfortable moment that I was out in LA with. I was at a very prestigious resort, and was very frustrated with their website because their restaurants had no menus. There was dead links. There was 404s all over the place and so forth. And the GM happened to be participating in a group that I was out there with, the Curie program, and he said, "Oh, you do digital marketing?" He says, "What do you think of our website?" I says, "Do you want to know the truth? Or you just want me to nod my head?" And he says, "No, the truth."
How long were you talking to him after that, Lauren?
It wasn't. He turned very red and very upset that he didn't realize that the website had these issues. Actually, it wasn't the GM. The GM was a female. He was the regional over it, and he didn't realize that the website. None of this stuff had been communicated to the web hosting person. And all this information, that stuff wasn't updated. The menus weren't up there. There were PDF files that were dead, so forth and so on. And there's this broken link that goes on with what you think you are doing versus what the reality is how you're presenting yourself. There's this missing mile that goes in between those two things. I mean, they have crazy cool stuff. They make their own honey. They make it with a beehive. They do their own salt things, and they have a falconry to kill the seagulls and all this other. Nobody knows anything about it, and I'm like, you all know that it's on your website, right? You know, and so going through that whole process, plus also the functionality of the website was dysfunctional. There was dead 404s everywhere of stuff that just didn't work anymore because nobody. And the web hosting person it wasn't being told. You can't blame them, although you should hold them accountable. Like, dude, do you ever really do a system?
That's why you have partners,
You can't hold someone accountable for something you refuse to be accountable for yourself.
I have a question.
I agree with
Did it have bullet points on the website? Because if it did, all else is forgiven.
It had a PowerPoint deck. It had a PowerPoint deck. It was all bullet pointed. It was yeah. No, it was just a shame because the place was beautiful. It was amazing what they had, but none of
they do great
it,
conferences. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Great
65.
they do
65% group business there. I mean, who would
Absolutely.
not love?
It's because their
65%.
leisure channel is not working.
Dead. That's
Right.
it. Their leisure part is totally gone. But yeah, their group business was phenomenal.
But
it just
so here's the thing, and this is frustrating. This is about how you can completely shoot yourself in the foot. So no matter how hard you're trying, you're just going to hobble along if you don't pay attention to the details. It just blows my mind that an industry that most of the really successful people in this industry got there on being a detail person, right? The detail of the guest experience. And yet for some reason, the digital aspect of that is completely ignored. I referred Fuel into a new customer of ours because when we hit the implementation phase and asked them just to see what their guest communication journey was for confirmation, pre-arrival, all of that, it took them a weird amount of time to get us the confirmation email. And then when they finally sent it to us, they said, hey, we have no clue where this comes from, what system it's in. We're not sure where it's coming from.
It's magic.
And so we're looking at it and we're like, well, we think it's this. And they're like, no, we're pretty sure it's not that. And we're like, wow, you really have no clue where this. So that means no one has looked at this in a very long time. Where, so let me ask you a question. Do you, as a GM, walk through the different experiences in your hotel to make sure that the guest experience is consistent to the expectation? Yes, of course. That's how you became a GM. Why aren't you doing that?
Do that?
Right.
Well, good GMs do that.
Right, but that's the thing is it's how this is overlooked. Same thing with the marketing. I would challenge every member of the hotel industry that is involved in marketing to just stop and think about what you're doing to the person.
That's right.
And ask yourself, is this good? Is this pushing our relationship to a better place? Or is it just all about you and greedy and scammy? And if you can't clearly answer that question,
Wait, hold on. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with everything you're saying up to that point. Because also, don't forget, sometimes people aren't trying to be malicious. They just haven't thought about it enough. They haven't given enough energy to it. I was out at a property I've been working with for several years. This is a completely true story, right? I do this for a living. We have this conversation every week. I agree with everything you said. I was at a property I've worked with for several years, not long ago, and they told me about something really cool that I've worked with this property for several years and didn't know it existed. And it's not on the website, and nobody's trying to screw anybody. They just never thought to write it down anywhere.
Well,
right?
so the other part of this for a branded property, but for the branded properties, a lot of times, so we run into, we deal with a lot of branded properties, and there's a certain amount of fatalism. Like, well, I don't have any control. I don't have any control over the confirmation webpage. I don't have any control of the website. I don't have any control of the confirmation email or the pre-arrival email. And that could be true if you allowed it to be true. What I always say to them is, you have a voice. You're paying. You're that brand's customer. Step up. Don't just roll over and take it. And I just run into a lot of digital marketers or GMs that are based at the property, especially in branded, saying, whatever, what can I do?
It's the classic, it's not my job is the most fatal statement in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, right? For sure. And that's what we, quote unquote, you're absolutely right. That's what we pay the brand for.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We've heard that lots of times.
Mm-hmm.
But my point being, and again, this is why this needs to be adopted. This mentality of, is this experience bettering my relationship or is it hurting my relationship?
Right.
Okay. And if
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with you on that point. I think it's more a question of, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with you on that point. Right?
Yeah.
It's not
agree.
It's a
I
question
think there's
of,
also a balance, right? Because you've got to remember these hotels are businesses that are trying to persuade a person to do something that they maybe didn't consider doing before in maybe
Right.
considering other properties. So the nature of sales and marketing is that, you know, not in a dishonest way, not in an egregious way, but you are manipulating people by the nature of marketing.
And if you do it for good, and your first rule is it good for the person you're persuading?
Right.
If you follow that, there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with sharing with someone. Right. That your first rule should be, when you're looking over anything you're looking to do to convince someone of whatever it is you're trying to convince them of, is, do you believe it's good for them?
Yeah.
And if you follow that rule,
how
I
does
agree
this
with
help
the
the guest?
But I just don't think it's quite that black and white. In terms of, you could argue that, you know, I have a guest that's come to me for, I don't know, every year for the last 10 years, and they only come once a year. And one of my business objectives is to get them to come more than once a year, right? So ultimately, you could look to the very end and say, okay, they're creating better memories if they come more times a year. But you're starting out from a place of, from a business, how do I get them to spend more money with me, right? Which isn't necessarily in their interest, unless you look at it from a perspective of the more money they spend, the better time they'll have, the more memories,
the more vacation they take.
So,
I mean, listen,
I don't think it's black and white. I think in principle, I agree 100%.
But here's the thing: how about you do it the right way and you educate them on the other cool times that they could be coming here? And oh, by the way, maybe it's not as busy at that time, so you'll actually pay less to have a better experience because it's less crowded. So is that better for them?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we approach it as well, right? We're not just allowing hotels to upsell to make more money. We're allowing hotels to upsell to give their guests an experience that the guest may not know existed. They may not know that room with the balcony existed at the end of the 8th floor, whatever. So it's the guest may say, I'm totally not interested in that. You're just trying to rip me off. Well, maybe. But other guests may say, "Oh, that's totally cool. I'll take that room with the balcony." So,
well, by the way, it's also how you present it.
That's
if you're trying to get guests to come in November that stayed with you in June, blasting them with coupons in October is probably going to get a negative response on your relationship. However, around September,
coupons for first-time guests only.
Right. Maybe around the halfway point, starting to give education on the different experiences that can be had during different times a year at the property.
Right.
You may actually strengthen your relationship with them.
Going back to an older point, one of the things that I do at the Rocket presentations is I take a screen capture of the hotel that we're presenting in, and I pull up the plugin that I have called Ghost that shows all the tracking that goes to their website.
Right.
And it always surprises the GM or whoever's representing the property in the meeting of how many resources are tapping into their logic as to what they're getting and so forth. It says, do you even realize all this data is available to you from the brand perspective? Have you ever asked the brand this perspective? And one of the GMs came to me and he says, I feel like somebody's been standing in front of my hotel with Tourette's, because everything you just showed me is somebody that is talking and presenting stuff that has nothing to do with my property in a way that I wouldn't want them to talk. And to the point of knowing what data is coming in and how it's being presented outward, allowing the brand to represent themselves without any sort of regulation or input. Like what you're saying, Val, is that, that room didn't exist. I didn't know there was a great room up there on the 8th floor to be able to see stuff. Or the fact that you're pushing product and hammering people on retargeting 10, 15, 20 times in three days and driving my customers crazy because they visited the website. That kind of stuff is what you're pointing to.
This does get to a bigger issue, though, and is something that's going to be something that we're seeing a real challenge with as we go forward for the brands. It goes back to what value you're providing to that specific property, that specific owner. Remember, one of the challenges, I used to run into this all the time, and I'm sure I've said this when I worked for Leading and when I worked for Wyndham. People always wanted to know what was the conversion rate on the website for their property. And the answer was, it's an unanswerable question. Because just because the guest didn't book your property doesn't mean that they didn't book one of the properties that we also sold in that given market, right?
Right.
So that's something where if that brand isn't representing the things that make your property unique appropriately, there's a question to ask about, is it appropriate for you to be part of that brand?
Right. And if you're not a box, and I've always been... Full disclosure, if it hasn't been obvious, I have, for non-boxed properties, I've never understood why they fly a flag.
I agree 100%.
That's exactly. I agree. I agree 95% anyway.
Well, no, a lot of it has to do with financing.
I know.
That's where the soft brands come in. And that's where the soft brands offer an opportunity, right?
But that's also where I say, like, and I've said this to Expedia multiple times, like, you should figure out how to build a partnership with a financing group to offer financing. Because
no, they shouldn't.
Why
not?
They
shouldn't.
No.
Why? Because it's bad for the hotels ultimately. Because Expedia tends to be too expensive relative to what you get in many cases. The thing that blows my mind, Ed. Sorry, this is a hot button for me because I've talked about this. I've written this a lot because I care about this one a ton. What's amazing to me is Expedia has changed.
He's becoming visibly agitated. So you can tell. Look at
it. Your demeanor has gone to a very tuxedo assassin.
Yeah. By the way, I have no idea where that. I have no idea why that picture is the picture. But no, the situation is they've really turned the conversation to the value that we bring and the value that the brands bring is exactly the same. What are you paying for a reservation that you receive? And the reality is the brands bring a lot of value beyond that if you're the right kind of property, right? You get the loyalty program, you get financing, you get volume purchasing, you get a ton of other benefits if you're the right kind of property, right? If you're not a box rooms, or you're not a Super 8, or you're not a Comfort Inn, those properties you probably should have a flag. You probably should be part of a brand.
Yep.
But if Expedia starts going in and bringing in financing and the like, and it would probably be a good business move for them, but I think it would be bad for hotel owners in the long run.
See, I think it'd be bad for the brands.
Oh, I think it'd be bad for the brands too, for sure. But that doesn't mean that not everything that's bad for the brands is good for hotel owners.
So, well, I agree with
not everything that's good for the brands is bad for the hotel owners.
I want to kind of point something out. Expedia didn't do that to the brands. The brands did that to themselves.
Wait a second. That is not true. That is revisionist history.
I need some popcorn to watch this.
I was present during most of the growth of the OTA world, and I thought it was insane that brands, and I'm not talking about yours. I mean, and that's the other thing I want you to understand.
No. Wait. Hold
in my head when I'm saying these things, and they're generally the brands that kind of set the tone for the way the industry goes. And the brands became very, very obsessed, and I'm thinking about very specific ones. They became very obsessed about really focusing in on the distribution value that comes from being part of their brand. And way back then, I was saying that is a huge mistake.
It's but Ed, you're leaving out a piece of historical context that is incredibly important, and this was true for most brands. I can't say every brand, and I can't say that every brand didn't. I can't say every brand did the right thing in 1999 and 2000. Right? That's simply not true.
Right.
What is unquestionably true is on 9/12/2001, hotels said we're hurting. And we need people who have lots of eyeballs. And Expedia explicitly said, yeah, we can do that for you. You're going to pay.
Right.
And they took advantage of that situation in a way that, for as long as I live, I will tell you, was one of the most unethical and evil things I've ever seen in my professional career. And I was there, and it happened to every brand.
And Priceline did it in the financial crisis.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely right. I mean, don't get me wrong. The brands then continue to let that happen, but let's not ignore the reality of the fact that some of what happened at a time when the industry was hurting, and there were people who said, "And we're going to screw you." That's a fact.
Well, I don't know if they really. In fairness to them, I don't think they really said we are going to screw you. It is we have a window to optimize our margins here, because it's the same thing. Every tour operator,
we're going to make sure that you cannot have a lower rate than we can have. We're going to take control of your distribution.
Absolutely,
that is unethical. I'm sorry. That's
no. I completely disagree with you.
I don't know if that's unethical. I think that's a smart strategy.
It's not. It's not unethical. You have colliding. You have colliding.
I could not disagree more.
Okay, that's good. That's good. You have colliding business models, right? And that's the basic problem. Is you go, and that's why in what was it, 2009, 2010, the worst year in the history of the hotel industry, dating back to the Great Depression, because the guys at CBR, they've got numbers all the way back to like 1935, 34, or something like that. And record profits for the OTAs, right? Because that was all of a sudden, all of the marketing constructs of an individual, of a traditional hotel brand, all fell apart. They could not generate sufficient demand on their own, so they had to go to third parties, and the third parties went, okay, here we go. And every time there's been a downturn, I mean, you go back to the 80s, oil.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing. It was tour operators back then, but it was the same thing. We had aggregated.
It was worse, at least in Orlando.
But that to me, I'll tell you why. I think.
Oh no! Look at Hawaii, Orlando.
I'll back off.
Ugly stuff. Yeah.
Tim,
I will back off the unethical. Wait, hear me out for 1 second. I will back off the unethical with one consideration. Right. The consideration is they're maximizing short-term profits over long-term gain. Right. It was, how do I take advantage of this situation? How do I put my customer in a position that is the most disadvantaged one for them, such that I gain right now without thinking about what's in the long-term best interest of everybody in the relationship.
Oh,
right.
I agree.
And that's
I
a
agree.
fact.
Yeah. I agree. They went to a win-lose. They took this opportunity.
No question.
Push it
correct
from
that's
from
different than unethical,
what do we do
right?
to win-win to they pushed it into win-lose and
correct.
leveraged it
and the complicating factor here is the multiple stakeholders, right? So you had owners and operators who might have lost some confidence in their brands to be able to market themselves during that particular time, let's say 2009, 2010. So, the owner of 5 properties across multiple brands doesn't see what he wants to see in the return coming from the marketing and distribution efforts of the brand.
Sure.
So they go to Expedia or Priceline or whomever themselves because they've got to manage their own margin. So I think one of the things that I find so interesting about this industry, and I've said it before, but it's just great, is these multiple stakeholders, the brands, the owners, the operators. So Expedia or third parties, there's always the opportunity to divide and conquer, and that is part of what happens. And I gotta
be honest with you, I'm willing to bet if you did a poll to the owners of the properties, how they felt about that, I'm willing to bet it's going to be somewhat like, yeah, they took advantage of the opportunity, but thank God I was able to drive some demand to keep my asset and not clean myself out.
Oh, of course. Right. By the way,
that can't even. But I want to just because again, I am going to say like the brands showed why they should not be in a conversation about demand as one of their key drivers of value. That exact example shows how the brands allowed this to happen, because the brands wouldn't be questioned if the brands didn't hang themselves on our distribution, our call centers, our business driving effort is key.
No, absolutely.
Not, hey, by the way, you're a real estate guy. We're going to make sure your hotel operates at a hospitality-centric way because that's how your cost of business is going to go down.
Right.
We buy a billion pieces of toilet paper a day, so your savings in all of this is going to way more than pay for the cost of your franchise.
That's what I was saying before. That's what I was saying before about how the brands have let the OTAs drive that discussion. I do want to reply to one thing both Alan and Robert said just for 1 second. By the way, 2008, 2009, that's on the brands, right? That's on the brands. 2001 is on the OTAs. The fact that it happened once and they got caught short, that was that's something where that's where I get frustrated with the OTAs. 2008, 2009, that was 7 years later. If you hadn't learned the lessons of 2001, 2002, that's on the brands for not being smarter about what they did that second time around. Right? I mean, realistically.
And the brands did fight back. They fought back in 2003-4 when Jim Young stood up to Expedia and IHG almost single-handedly and only, and I truly believe, only because he was formerly with Continental Airlines and he had that capability to go, I've been there. Look at what we did. Look at what we did with commission cuts with travel agents. You don't, you go in with this, just let other people make decisions for you, right?
Well, I mean, Jim Young didn't realize that, coming from the airline space where the pilots have no control over the inventory, he wasn't quite on the ball of understanding that the GMs actually do control a GM does have the ability to control distribution. So, full disclosure, I was a consultant when I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers for IHG for Jim Young when he came over from Continental, and it was really interesting. He stood up to Expedia. I mean, he's a smart man. He understood it, but he also just felt like, coming from the airline space, he was just shocked that it was that the levers that the brands had over hotels. But it was fascinating.
Yeah, here's the thing.
That changed the industry.
I'm going to throw the
next downturn. Right?
I'm going to throw the caution out now. I'm going to say it right now. All the brands that have restricted the property's ability to drive their own destiny, this is going to be the thing. This is going to be the thing that ultimately is your undoing. Yeah. Because at least the brands that give the hotel the ability to scratch the itch, to drive some of their own demand and have their own personality, those brands and that approach will ultimately win. Because you can only take away the property's ability to do it when you can unquestionably say it's because you do it far better than they do, and none of the brands that are currently restricting that can even claim that. And I can go with the most basic look at this. Just go run speed tests on their sites. Go look at the experience of how they're actually marketing these properties. I'm sorry, this fight against the hotels, the on-property's ability to drive demand is ultimately going to be the undoing. And by the way, it strengthens the OTAs.
Right. By the way, Ed, I think you know this. The vast majority, the overwhelming majority of my clients are independents. So I don't disagree with that directionally at all. The only place I would add a caveat to what you just said is we have to recognize there's different types of properties that serve different types of needs, right?
Yep.
For a lot of select people who want a Courtyard by Marriott because they know they're going to walk in and they know exactly what the room template's going to be like and they know what to expect and they know what the free breakfast is going to be like and yada, yada, yada. And for those properties, apart from destination-specific stuff, there isn't a lot that's going to differentiate that individual property and probably shouldn't, right? It's more about, am I going to get a consistent experience for that kind of traveler who's looking for that kind of thing? Right. If I'm going to a four-star city center that's got different amenities and all that other kind of stuff, that's definitely a place where the brands are going to be more challenged.
If there's no real estate angle or service angle, then yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. But I will say there are Courtyards and Hamptons and Homewoods that could probably do a lot better if they were marketed better And,
well, my question is, should they be Courtyards or Hamptons or Homewoods if they're that different from what a Courtyard or a Hampton or a Homewood is and what that guest expects?
If there's
I think that's a different question.
But I only think that question comes up when you restrict what they can do to make that answer yes, like, or no. Like, if you make it a yes or no, this is where I'm saying this will be the beginning of the end of the brands that have taken this monolithic approach to how properties are marketed. Because listen, the Homewood Suites in Lake Mary, Florida, I think you could easily question right now if it should be a Homewood Suites or if it should run a different approach altogether. However, if Hilton allowed them to supplement and have some ability to, drive to the audience that they're really targeted at, I don't think you can make that a yes or no. I think so I think this restriction is a mistake.
Well,
we agree completely, Ed. I think this is a question of where do you draw that line, right? Because that's really fundamentally where the question comes in.
Didn't we have a talk last week about me being a Monday morning quarterback?
By the way, Ed, Darlene agrees with you and also makes a very good point about the fact that they're not mutually exclusive when it comes to that. But having lived through both circumstances we're talking about between the OTAs and brand, nobody's clean on this. I've been experiencing OTAs that have marginalized their ability to offer inventory into market and squeeze out hotels that weren't participating with them, even though they out in front said that they didn't do this. By the same token, I've seen brands marginalize their brand promise in the sense that they homogenize their marketing strategy. And to all of us that work in this industry and work with brand and non-branded, we know how inept a brand support is when it comes to the rank and file of hotels. There is no particular interest that's given to a particular hotel. It's its contribution value to the brand that's the first assessment and filter. And to that point, there are plenty of places that should be better at marketing themselves outside of the brand's effort for them. But by the same token, there is plenty of brands that are roadside and are limited services and so forth that literally survive by the brand promise, because pulling in means I know what to expect. So there is a mix on both of those, and I'm not trying to be middle of the road about this, but both have abused whatever relationship they had with any hotel ownership as to what they promised versus what they've delivered.
This is where I get on my high horse or get pissy about like the ethics of this and things along those lines, because I think one of the and I'm going to speak more philosophically and bigger picture for a second beyond the hotel industry, right? And if people want to later scoff and roll their eyes and say I'm naive or a Pollyanna, I don't care. I'm perfectly fine with that.
We will.
One of the great flaws. That's all right. I wear my earnestness honestly, right? I'll wear my heart on my sleeve every single day.
You can see the expression. That is earnest.
No, I mean, here's the reality, though. I'm calling you Ernie going forward.
By the way, Ernest is my middle name, so that's
awesome. That's fantastic. But the thing that has harmed, and this goes back to what we were talking about taking care of the customer and is it right for the customer and the like. The thing that has harmed business after business after business again and again and again is this idea that the only stakeholder that matters is the shareholder.
Thank you. And 1,000,000% agree with you.
Right? Mm-hmm. There are other stakeholders in the relationship and in the compact we have as businesses beyond just the shareholder. That doesn't mean that they're not a stakeholder, but it means your employees are a stakeholder. It means your customers are a stakeholder. It means the community at large that you provide services to and represent is a stakeholder. And if the only stakeholder you pay any attention to is the shareholder, ultimately, I think that is not an ethical thing to do. Fundamentally, right? That's where I get really pissy about the OTA stuff. That's where I get really pissy about the brand stuff in 2008 and 2009 of letting it have again.
TripAdvisor is a great example of that right now, right?
Oh my god!
The consumer completely,
right? But,
totally.
But let's ask Fritz, former Starwood, right? What happens when you don't kind of deal with the shareholders in the way that they like, because unfortunately, and I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying this is right. It's just like the ugly reality is your bonus and your continued employment and all that, getting to do the stuff that you'd like to do, is all geared by that. It's not direct.
I bet Fritz.
Customers, right?
I bet Fritz sleeps pretty well at night. Frankly, I'm not too worried about Fritz. Frankly,
but listen,
but again, he was.
I would love to get fired the way Fritz got fired.
I'm 100% in lockstep. Like, I actually am very wary of working like for services for my company. I'm wary of working with investment grade businesses. I'm sorry, I always have been, because I know a large amount of my fee that I'm paying to whatever the service is, whether it's a big time PR firm or if it's like a major CRM or something like that. I know that a large amount of what I'm paying is going to stuff that has nothing to do with their ability to deliver service or quality to me.
Right.
With certain exceptions, because actually one thing that's been kind of refreshing as of late are these personalities that have come out in the world that have created some of the fastest growing companies with a mentality of kind of, hey, you're investing in my vision, not next quarter. And it's incredibly hard to pull off, but some of the best companies in Wall Street now are companies that did that. Amazon, Facebook,
for sure,
Apple, all basically said, you're going to do what we're doing or don't buy our stock. We're cool with that. And if we could get someone on our industry to do that, that would be amazing, to do that successfully. And it's the polar opposite of what TripAdvisor is doing right now, which is they are literally...
We do have somebody in our industry who's doing it. We actually do. Airbnb.
Yeah,
actually, but they're not public yet. But yes, they will end up being that if they continue.
Well,
that
but
way.
but you look at all the VCs and private equity guys. I mean, but again, they've got these their investment funds that they've got to send this return, and if they hang on to the money too long waiting for the right thing, they've got to use it, or they lose their high value, the high net worth investors go out to put all their hundreds of millions into somebody else, right? So it's a complicated thing, and you're right, it should be working that way, where it's like, what is the most innovative thing for the customer? But it's a lot easier for these guys to go, here are the returns that I'm demanding, or whatever. Or the stuff like blockchain, they're just throwing out, they're investing in 100 companies thinking, as long as 2 of these go, we don't care. Yeah, it sounds like BS, but hey, you know what? The guy who's the CTO, he did this other thing before. Okay.
Yeah, even if it doesn't work, this one will probably pivot well enough that it's not a complete loss. So that's good,
right? Which is not healthy for anything.
But you can watch the rise and fall in quality of the arc of all the businesses that have done that. There are some well-known agencies in our space that used to be the best you could go to and have become investment grade, and now they're kind of jokes. Technology providers in our space, at one point, they were doing amazing things. And by the way, while they were doing amazing things, they were making a crap ton of money. But then they went investment grade and greed set in, and now they don't help this industry at all.
Right.
And actually, this has been some of my concerns with some of the organizations in this industry that have basically allowed their boards and advisory groups to be taken over by these businesses who have absolutely no interest in helping the industry. Their interest is wreaking every cent they can out of this industry. And it's not OTAs. Like, I'm sorry, I can name much worse offenders inside our space than what the OTAs do to this industry. with the exception of TripAdvisor, because they're the worst. However, so my concern is now you have the sources of education of our industry being run by these interests that are really only interested in reeking every penny they possibly can out of this industry. And unfortunately, it's all going to Wall Street. It's not staying in this industry. It's being sucked out.
That's right.
Absolutely. Actually, on that note, I'm going to do a little promotional pitch for a
PE group you've been consulting for.
No. The promotional pitch. There is a PE group that I'm working with who are trying very hard not to do that, and they're having a very interesting time finding the right kind of deals. I mean, sort of thing, and they are able to do kind of this pickiness where they're going, no, this isn't the right thing, and yeah, it's interesting. But no, I was going to say in terms of conferences and organizations, I'm moderating a conference for Onyx Center Source that comes up May 17th, and it's, let me tell you, the content of their agenda is great, because it's, all these people go out, whatever, to Hype for Travel or wherever you may go, and you've got all sorts of fluff and things like that. But the people that they pulled in for this thing who are talking about, be it blockchain or smart contracts, commission models, cybersecurity, GDPR, everything as a service, payments, owner, they have the obvious owners panel sort of thing, and attracting the next generation of talent. I mean, these guys have stacked it up with like true experts who are not just lay type thing, and here's a little promotion, and we're going to pitch our product. It's like, it's Onyx Center Source. They're the kind of, I guess, for the old timers around, they were the portion of Pegasus that did the commission process.
Oh, is that on?
Well, now they're
cool.
Officially, they're called Onyx Center Source, but anyway, I'll post it on. I'm posting all the
That's
things.
pretty interesting.
So how many of the speakers had to pay to be on the roster versus they were invited because they were experts in the topic?
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
Oh no, yeah. So they went out and found legitimately really good, really good. They've got Johnny Thorson talking about smart contracts and stuff like that, and the guy knows knows about this stuff. And the interesting thing is the fee, again, these guys, it's really kind of their quote user conference, but they've really done it to figure out, and speaking with their guys, they want to learn as well. They aren't just sitting here going, let's go sell a bunch of crap. They're like, we want to learn what's going on, get these folks together. So it's not a huge conference.
No, that's
I think
not
they probably
possible.
get 150,
have
200
a
people.
conference where the host learns anything. That's not it's a host,
but that's
they're called the host because it's a host parasite thing, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But their whole thing is it's $300 for people to attend, and it's a half day Tuesday, full day Wednesday, half day Thursday, right?
So which day are we doing the live show from there? We're obviously all going to come.
Yeah, it's May 15th through 17th, and they get C-level people. It's really interesting because I haven't been to a conference before, but they were running through, who's there. But
can you do me a favor? Can you record the GDPR panel, but not the person speaking? I want you recording the people's faces as they realize that they have 10 days.
That's right. But I
believe by the second on every slide.
Yeah. But they really are hitting all the pillars of privacy, security, these technologies, how the service side of it, the talent side to get it, and I told them honestly, this program was pretty amazing. So anyway, but
I think that's great. It sounds good on the surface, as long as the person doing GDPR isn't someone that sells GDPR services to people.
No, they aren't. And I'll tell you,
or isn't doing it to sell GDPR.
If they coin themselves as a GDPR expert, then
Yeah, exactly. They're on a correct.
You know what? That's okay. I actually don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with people who sell a service being the one who talks about that service,
right.
as long as that what they're talking about. I mean, Stuart, I would listen to you talk about what makes great websites all the time. I would listen to you talk
as long
about
as it's not trying to sell you a website, right?
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And we know up front that that's actually how you're compensated. Right.
Right. Yeah. Very true. Very true.
By the way, I talk about hotel digital marketing strategy and hotel distribution strategy all the time. I get paid as a consultant to help people figure out their digital marketing and distribution strategy. You know,
I quite enjoy listening to you talk about hotel digital strategy.
Well, thank you, man.
Should we do the rut-row?
By the way.
Oh wait, no.
Okay, I gotta run in like 5. So I just want
to. Let's hit the rut-row. Let's hit the rut-row.
Hang on. I'm going to tell you who. Okay, you guys go start talking about Trivago. I'm going to tell you who the person is talking about GDPR here in just a second. So, go ahead.
So what is wrong?
Trivago, it was the paper tiger from the beginning. It was a resell of a resell. I always thought Trivago was just a face front for like metasearch and metasearch. It was just a readaptation of an interface selling to other interfaces. It really wasn't in itself a unique product.
A reskin technology that has no like competitive advantage is a poor business model.
You know, it's okay. Ads, and it'll be successful.
I missed you, Stuart.
Said for years. Sorry, go ahead, Stuart.
Sorry, if you run lots of TV ads, then it's bound to be successful. It doesn't matter if it's a rehashed product.
Absolutely.
Have a good looking front, people. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually think we're going to see a lot of companies fall victim of the fact that marketing is starting to tighten. Like, so you're no longer going to get away with being a crappy marketer because there's just endless growth in networks. With GDPR coming, with Facebook's reactions to the public outcry about Cambridge Analytica, with others who will follow suit on that. Like, this is going to make it harder and harder to not feel the wrath of stuff you shouldn't have done in marketing if you keep doing it. Which, by the way, it's not hard. Just follow the basic rules that have always existed in marketing and realize they apply to the digital space.
Yeah, and follow the Wheaton law, the law of Wheaton as well, right?
Yeah, Will Wheaton.
Will.
Say what way?
Right.
I like Stuart's point. It's not our data. It's not our data. It's their data. And as long as we treat it with respect, you're going to use the proper means that you're trying to present product to people that you feel is the most interested in your product. And if you keep that high level to it, then you're not going to have problems. Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, take care of your customer and maybe your business.
I know. That's just crazy. That's just crazy.
That's crazy talk.
I mean,
you know, talking about Trivago specifically, though.
Yeah.
But talking about Trivago specifically, I mean, I think I'm not alone in this. I think we've all said this at some point. Metasearch is a feature. It's not a company.
Agreed.
Right.
Go figure that, you know, right? I mean, that's all it is. So go figure that these folks are. This is the same argument I've had for a long time about everybody who says metasearch is going to be the savior of the industry. No, it's not. It's a feature. Ed, you should read my last blog post about that, about how great marketing technology will not save you from a bad hotel marketing.
I did read it. I liked it because I was like, that was great. I saw it on Twitter.
Hey, I even made an AI video from it, which was my.
I saw that. Oh, that's right. That's true.
That's what caused me to tip my hat about, you know, Flip2's innovative approach to blockchain that we're releasing.
That's right. By the way, I will tell you, I am actually vaguely bullish on distributed ledger technologies.
Absolutely.
As opposed to blockchain. Distributed ledgers have some really interesting features that could turn into something very cool. Smart contracts, stuff like that. Potentially very interesting and very exciting.
Yes.
Not next year.
Yeah, you're talking long term.
And it's not going to disrupt the company. It will improve processes, and it's not. Well, all right, let me stop. It's not going to disrupt OTAs.
Correct.
Right.
It might disrupt specific OTAs.
Channel shift, right? It's not going to affect channel shift.
Right.
Right.
But I do think I do agree with you. Although I am going to caution everyone that this industry of any industry is most likely to fall to the biggest flaw that blockchain causes, which is lulls you into a sense of security. And you don't realize that the weakest link in the chain, like, for example, in blockchain, is the wallet. No one bothered to really focus on the security of the wallet. And if you look at where most hacks have happened inside of cryptocurrency,
like the Ethereum hack that just happened this past week.
Right.
It's where the chain ends. And, so here's the thing. This industry of all is the most likely to fall into that lulling of I blockchained. So I checked that box.
Right.
We are super secure in our blockchain.
And the problem is all the data. I mean, the blockchain does distributed ledgers, right? Yeah.
It's never going to be called that in this
highly secure. Well, yeah,
right. Whatever the distributed ledger that wins is probably be called blockchain, whether it's blockchain or not.
Nothing to do with what blockchain was. It will be called blockchain in this.
But for that, I mean, when you have all these old legacy systems, blockchain's not going to help you, right? I mean, all you're going to do is say, "Great, we've got our junk here, and then we're going to go, connect it over."
We're spreading our junk out.
Yeah, exactly.
So actually, I want to make sure
Valen
gets the word in, by the way.
Don't want to, yeah, you're going to have a very
Valen
secure
kept trying
area.
to jump in, and she
okay.
she can't be seen and wasn't being heard. So, Valen, you were saying something.
No.
No.
Not about blockchain.
Sorry about that.
I'll say something.
There's plenty other voices in here about blockchain. I don't need to add mine.
That's funny. I'll say this. I agree with your summary, Tim, that you emailed to us earlier, that you think it has some promise down the line, right? Nothing really in the short term majorly. Here's the biggest problem I see that blockchain's going to face. By the time it's viable and cost effective on scale, we're going to have quantum computing that's going to make the encryption within the current blockchain obsolete, because you're going to be able to decrypt that. So it's not going to the security that's in baked into blockchain today is going to need to be a whole lot more secure in 5 years from now when quantum computing is a reality. So.
Right. Well, and actually, I posted one of our news items was reality check 5 roadblocks to blockchain loyalty technology. Right.
Yep.
It's by guy Chuck Arrett. Full disclosure, I work with this company. I advise this company, and they're in the loyalty space, and they are, quote, a blockchain company, but they are not using the blockchain as their core technology. They understand that it is going to be important, so they're doing all their traditional processing, and then they're posting it into the blockchain, right, to kind of lock it in. So they're kind of batching the stuff in because of the expense and all the points that he brings out. It's a very, very good article. But because of that, they're using it, but they're learning about it because the benefits, especially in a loyalties types of trading these currency values of whatever Marriott, doesn't matter, choice privilege points for make up anything, Amazon dollars or Denny's thing, which is going to happen. All that stuff
as a form of currency. I get it. I completely get you talking about blockchain.
Oh no, that's one for the currency. Well, one's for the currency, and the other is for the smart contracting. And it isn't. Forget the blockchain. Forget the cryptocurrency crap. It's these are the terms of the agreement, and we have a systemic algorithm to make sure folks. Right. That's the big thing where you have enough transparency.
I'll tell you the cool thing about smart contracts.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the cool thing about smart contracts that would have a real world application today if the technology scaled correctly, right? First of all, smart contracts, I think, are oversold in this stuff in the sense that, we're just going to automate the contract and lawyers go away, right? No, that's not true at all, because you cannot write down every possible case of where the contract needs to apply. However, we do know there's a reality today where, wholesaler rates get sold naked on metasearch, to bring this back to other things, because nothing prevents that. Now, that's the kind of thing that if you apply a smart contract to it, you do get some better control of your inventory and your distribution to say these rates can't be sold unless they meet certain criteria. That will be a very cool thing when somebody figures out how to do it at scale, regardless of what the underlying technology is.
Right. They're paired with an airline trip, and it's
Correct,
not just a booking.
correct.
It's canceled,
Correct.
and it's broken up, and all the fun things that they do with that. Yeah.
Correct.
But
So
because
all of
that's
that
doesn't
clearly
solve
clearly definable. That's a clearly definable. That's a clearly definable use case that you can say, now we can apply this technology to make that work. Right.
Right.
That doesn't require blockchain specifically. It doesn't require distributed ledger specifically.
You could do that
it requires
with
smart
Right.
contracts.
Current database technology.
Correct.
Exact same.
Correct. Absolutely.
You
But
could
it
actually
grew out of blockchain, right?
Correct.
I mean,
The
realistically,
idea
that's where it
of
started.
the design grew from
Correct. Correct.
the things that have been applied to blockchain. Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's a distributed ledger, that sort of stuff that you can lock in. That's very good.
Right.
But again, there are huge problems. Great, as long as everybody's on the same platform for these smart contracts.
Yeah, but that happens.
And then it's like,
Like we're an industry of standards. Everyone loves getting on a standard.
hey, Val,
Well, actually, that's the beautiful thing about standards in
Valen
this
can talk about this a
industry.
lot more than we can.
Val,
I'm sure.
Val
Yeah.
knows about standards.
Yeah,
But the
Valen
beautiful
knows
thing
about
about
but
standards
that's-
in this industry is that there's so many to choose from.
The APIs
But the really
are just really good.
Right.
I hate.
By the way, folks, I always
have
love
to
the
run.
conversation, but
Yeah, I
I
gotta
have to
go too.
run.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
I
at the
do as
2 hour
well.
mark. So Tim, before you jump, where can people find more about what you do and your blog and, of course, your podcast?
TimPeter.com is where you can find everything. TimPeter.com/blog/podcast. And I'm at TCPeter on Twitter.
Excellent. Valen, where can they find about Nor1 and yourself, actually?
For Nor1, www.nor1.com. And about me, I'm at Valen.Perini on Twitter.
Excellent. Mr. Stewart?
Fueltravel.com, fueltravel.com/podcast, and you can hit us up on Twitter as well at fueltravel. If you want to debate Star Wars finer intricacies, you can hit me up at Stuart Butler on Twitter.
Excellent.
By the way,
And
best hotel marketing podcast out there.
Yes.
Fuel Travel.
Well, and yours as well, Tim, because you guys kept me company on a lot of flights this past week when I was flying. You guys were the podcast I was listening to on the flights. Mr. Ed, where can they find you and Flip2?
You can find Flip2 by going to www.flip.to. You can find me on social media, Edward St. Ange. Mr. Gray?
Oh, no,
yeah,
I'm going to
Mr.
get Robert. I'm going to get Robert.
rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole.
And everything for the shortest URL in the world at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/142 will be for this show. And if you want to see all of our previous episodes, /live, and you'll get to all 141 previous episodes. They're all linked to it. So with that, thank you very much, everyone, for the time spent. We are going to probably have a guest host next week, so we'll see if they can get a word in edgewise on our topics next week.
And by the way, I will not be here next week. I am on I'm on vacation.
You're in Mexico. You're in Mexico. Yeah, you're not going
to
to
Mexico.
No,
It should
wait,
be
where-
sad.
Trivago to book the room.
Where are you going on vacation? Yes. Where are you going on vacation? How did you book all the
Cabo San Lucas, and it is a sanctioned trip by Wyndham Worldwide because that's actually their incentive trip this year. So
well then.
So somebody in my
you're
household
tagging along. You're
I'm a kept man. I'm a +1.
Riding on her
You're a
coattails. Love it.
You're a plus one.
Every chance I get, Stuart.
Nice.
Well, enjoy yourself next week. Again, thank you everyone for Holly, Darlene in the chat rooms, and for everyone else that was popping through. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you for show 143 next Friday at 11:30 Eastern. Until then, bye everybody.
Bye, guys.
Cheers, everybody.